When Russia was cut off from SWIFT, most people thought it was just a punishment. A button was pressed, a country was isolated, the world moved on. But that moment did something far bigger than anyone wanted to admit. It changed how money is trusted. SWIFT is not money. It is a message system. It tells banks who owes who paid who, and where value is moving. It is boring, quiet, invisible. And because it is invisible, people forget how powerful it is. Power works best when no one thinks about it. For decades, the global system ran on one assumption. If you held dollars, if you cleared payments through Western systems, your money was safe. Politics stayed separate from plumbing. Wars happened, but the pipes still worked. That assumption was the foundation of global trust. When Russia was removed, that foundation cracked. Not because Russia was large, not because the decision was right or wrong, but because it showed something clearly for the first time. Access to the system was conditional. Once something becomes conditional, it stops being neutral. Neutral systems attract everyone. Conditional systems force choices. The dollar did not lose value overnight. Markets did not collapse. Nothing dramatic happened. That is how structural change always begins. Quietly, what changed was thinking. Every country watching learned a lesson. If access can be revoked once, it can be revoked again. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, trust does not disappear when something breaks. It disappears when people imagine it could break. That is the moment the clock starts. Before this, holding dollars meant safety, liquidity, stability. After this, holding dollars also meant exposure to political risk, not risk of loss today. Risk of dependency tomorrow. Dependency is invisible until it is tested. History shows that systems lose power when users seek alternatives, not when they rebel loudly. The shift is gradual, subtle, rational. No country announced an exit from the dollar. They didn't need to. They diversified. Diversification is quiet doubt. When you see countries building alternative payment rails, local currency trade, regional clearing systems, it is not rebellion, it is insurance. Insurance only exists because of fear. The important point is this: the dollar did not weaken because of inflation, debt, or politics in that moment. It weakened because it stopped being purely economic. Once money becomes a tool, it stops being a neutral store of trust. This does not destroy a currency instantly. It changes its trajectory. The dollar's strength was never just size or military power. It was reliability, predictability, rules that did not change based on who you were. Once exceptions appear, confidence becomes conditional. Conditional confidence does not scale globally. Think about it simply. If you knew your bank account could be frozen because of a decision you did not control, would you keep all your savings there? Or would you spread risk? That is exactly what nations began doing. Not emotionally, logically. This is where most people misunderstand what happened. They look for headlines, for collapse, for drama, but reserve currencies do not collapse from explosions. They erode from alternatives. The moment Russia was removed from SWIFT, the question changed from, is the dollar dominant, to what happens if we are next? That question never existed before. Once it exists, it never goes away. The system still works. The dollar is still used. Trade still clears. But behavior changes underneath. Countries reduce exposure at the margins. Contracts diversify currencies. Energy trades experiment with settlement alternatives. Each change is small, but they add up. This is how trust decays, not through panic, through planning. The irony is that the action was meant to show strength, and it did in the short term. But strength used visibly becomes power, and power invites hedging. Hedging is the enemy of dominance. Dominant systems rely on default behavior. When people stop defaulting and start choosing, dominance weakens. This is not about Russia. Russia was the event, not the cause. The cause was the realization that financial infrastructure is a weapon. Once a tool is used as a weapon, everyone treats it as one. That changes incentives forever. In the past, countries held dollars because it was easiest, safest, most liquid. Now they ask an extra question. Is this also a liability? DDing one question changes everything. The dollar did not disappear, but its role shifted from unquestioned to evaluated. Evaluated systems face competition. Competition forces adaptation. Adaptation is expensive. This is the stage where narratives break down. Some say nothing has changed. Others say everything is over. Both are wrong. What changed is direction. Direction matters more than speed. Empires do not fall when people are angry. They fall when alternatives mature. The swift decision accelerated something already forming. Multipolar finance. Not because anyone wants chaos, but because everyone wants control. No country wants to wake up one day and realize its reserves are unusable. So they plan. Planning weakens centrality. The most dangerous thing for a reserve currency is not inflation. It is optionality. Once users have options, loyalty disappears. This does not mean the dollar collapses tomorrow. It means it no longer stands alone. Standing alone is what made it powerful. This is the part that feels uncomfortable. Actions that are logical in isolation can be damaging in aggregate. Punishing one actor taught every other actor a lesson. That lesson was not about morality. It was about exposure. The global system moved from trust-based to risk-managed. Risk management reduces concentration. Reduced concentration weakens reserve status over time. This is not a moral judgment. It is arithmetic. The dollar still benefits from size, depth, and history. But history does not freeze behavior. Behavior adapts faster than institutions. The real damage was not financial. It was psychological. Trust is a habit. Once broken, it must be rebuilt continuously. And rebuilding trust is harder than enforcing power. Power can compel compliance. Trust invites participation. Reserve currencies require participation. That is why this moment matters, not because it destroyed the dollar overnight, but because it changed how the world thinks about money. And once thinking changes, systems follow. History shows that no reserve currency loses dominance by announcement. It loses it by relevance. When alternatives exist, relevance erodes. The future will not look like collapse. It will look like fragmentation. More currencies, more systems, more complexity. Complexity reduces central power. That is the long-term cost. People often ask whether this was a mistake. That is the wrong question. The real question is whether the system was ready for the consequences. Every use of power has a price. This price is paid slowly. Those who understand systems are not surprised. They know that tools reveal their limits when used. The swift decision revealed a limit, and limits, once seen, cannot be unseen. That is how systems change, quietly, gradually, permanently, not with noise, but with choice.